Of the under-17 women's national football team. Simphiwe, welcome to the program.
Good evening, how are you?
Very good. How are you after Uruguay? It must have been an incredible experience, not quite the results you wanted, but you did get a draw against Mexico that kick-started a lot of belief in the team, I expect.
You asked how I am. I'm still sleepy, trying to adjust back to South African time. But yeah, it was a great experience being in the World Cup. You're right, invaluable experience that nobody can give to you. You don't just open a bottle of Coke and drink it and you have it. No, you have to be there, do it, and come back and tell the tale. And that's exactly how we went through to the World Cup, because going there with 15, 16-year-olds that were so excited, and they had it in them. They had the confidence. And when you get to the World Cup first game, actually in the warm-up, they're like, "Coach, okay, this is it." And they are nervous, And I asked them, "How many times did you have to drink water and sit?" And like, "Coach, numerous times." But the beauty of it was that they knew they had to be on that field and fight for each other, fight for me as well, because it's the rule, we fight for one another and we don't stop when we are tired, but when we are done. And against Mexico, that's exactly what they did, That game took a lot out of us. It took a lot out of us. One of our players got hospitalized immediately after that. She missed both Japan and Brazil game. And, we had to change things around. The biggest thing about that World Cup is that we had to be tournament ready. And I don't think we were tournament ready. We were ready to play match by match, but that is the difference. But
also, to be fair, it is an adjustment to play at that level. And I don't think your team had experienced that before. And now that they have, and now that there's some sort of collective experience, and especially amongst the coaching staff, the next time you'll know what to expect.
Definitely, because I think it speaks to a lot of quality in developing our players in South Africa and the rest of Africa. Because if you look at how Japan has structured their team, Mexico, everyone that is there qualifies tournament qualification except CAF, which is Africa. And so you are not used to playing tournament and planning 2 days later, you are playing 3 days later, you are playing. So that took its toll on us. But again, it's the experience that's there, because the biggest lesson was that the quality of technical abilities in the team is what would make your tactics. And us not being so big in stature and us being small, we are like the Japanese. But the difference between us and them is that technically they were superior, and it helped for them to change tactics anytime in the game. And so for me, going there, we were going into a group of death, but in our minds was, we are just going to go out there and do our best. And we did that. That was our best with all we had and all we can achieve. So for me, lessons learned is character is also a big thing that as coaches in development, we look at and see how can we build on that as a nation, as Africans, as, youth football.
Yeah. I mean, against Brazil as well. The Japan game, that must have been a huge adjustment. But against Brazil at halftime, you were still holding them and holding your own. It was just in the second 45 minutes. But to have played against the likes of Japan and Brazil, who are the foremost countries in terms of women's football, and this was, the next generation they were up against, that must have been quite an experience to figure out, let's see what they're doing. And, we're going to remember that. We've got to figure out how we can replicate and improve on it, probably.
Definitely, because if you think about it, we played a terrible game against Mexico and we drew 0-0. We got a point there. We play Japan and we have better confidence, better experience. We lose 6-0. With the game, I looked at it and I thought there is a lot of positives to take out of that. And when we prepared for Brazil, we took all the good things that we did against Japan and brought them to that Brazil game. And you could tell in the first 10 minutes of the game, we should have scored. We didn't. And in the second half, they got a goal, we got a red card and a penalty. We still came back to score. So adjusting, because already in the beginning of that first game, that last game against Brazil, I had to omit one player from the squad because FIFA doctors and other medical issues came into play. So I had to omit her,
so
the right winger.
Yes,
so the right winger had to go to right back. But nonetheless, in youth football, we prepare our players to play almost any position because you want them to experience, be able to, you know, take the accountability and the responsibility to grow in the game, because at that level you are still trying them different positions and trying to fit them according to their abilities and all of that. And for me, that Brazil game, we are taking it with confidence, and we know the mistakes that we made there. It's mistakes that can happen to any senior team anywhere in the world, you know. So for me, the girls took that, and I had a word with them, and I said, how did it feel? And some of them like, coach, when we go back to South Africa, we have to tell our coaches, if we have been training, we haven't been doing anything compared to what the World Cup standard demands, you know. And for me, those are the lessons. Before I could tell them what they can expect or what they can achieve from the World Cup, already the game was the biggest teacher for them.
It's an incredible time for women's football. We got Bantwana, who's looks like, I mean, come on, they're gonna qualify for the World Cup. Bantwana having this experience. Where do you think everything has gone right? Because a couple of years ago, it wasn't such a rosy picture for women's football in the country, but it seems like the pieces of the puzzle are all getting in place.
We are slowly getting it right in our development, because in that Banyana team, the big stars that are in that team, Tembi, Khatlane, Linda Muhlalo, Jermaine Siopeseni, those girls played in the under-17, under-20 national teams, and now they're in the senior team. So that tells you progression in the national teams is more important.
Yes.
Because if we don't get our development right and quality coaching from that level, then we will have a big problem. So if you have under 17s at this age, they're 15, 16, and they're doing so well, already they have to graduate to the under 20, and we have to get a lot more players, expose them as much as we can to the highest level.
Yes.
Don't just stick to playing in Africa where we think, no, we are powerhouses, we are doing well. Expose them to going and playing other powerhouses outside of Africa and the rest of the world. And that is just telling you how far we've come as a nation. If I look at that Banyana team right now, almost 80% of those players, they played in the youth level.
Yes.
And that is the experience you can't buy, and you can see right now it's paying off. So for me, I think as South Africa, we should pat our backs in the back, but we shouldn't celebrate too much, because we still need to do a lot more.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, okay, so the World Cup is over now, but as you as a coach, just quickly tell us, what's your next port of call? You're constantly scouting new players, I assume.
So right now I've got only 3 players that still qualified to be in the under-17 team that went to the World Cup.
Yes.
And with my scouting and players I had to cut, already I was building while I was scouting and preparing this team to say, I have to look at next year already. And it's about that. Football never sleeps for us. It's writing that report and coming back to say, how can I then start implementing the lessons I've learned today and give back to South Africa as well. I'm not going to keep it to myself, but I need to go back and give back to the coaches that are coaching these girls back in their different clubs and schools to say, this is how far we've come, this is what we can improve on, so that the next time we qualify for a World Cup, we know what to expect, and this is how we prepare our players for the national teams.
Absolutely. And I expect a couple of phone calls through to Desiree Ellis as well. Simphiwe Dludlu, thank you very much for joining us. And incredible experience. We watched it all from here. But you can only go from strength to strength. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.